Hi everyone. Today I'm going to walk you through the solution to problem 21-8. So it's actually problem 8 in chapter 21. In my book, it's on page 180. So we are given a file. It's in our course shell called Toys R Us, and this is the file here. As always, we find that this data is sort of floating in the middle of the page. So I am going to get rid of the empty columns and rows so that my data starts in the top left-hand corner. Oh, before I get to work, I should also mention I've created a documentation page and I've named the master file with a name that fits in my file structure. And I'm going to get rid of this empty page, sheet 3. We don't need it. Okay, so here's our data, and what we're asked to do is create a seasonal index. And so we're to compare average sales during the average sale by quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4 to overall average sales. So the first thing that we'll do is create a summary of the quarters. There are 4 quarters. Okay. And then let's also name our quarters because we're going to use an if statement that will reference this range. Okay, so I'm going to name this quarter. And I'm going to name sales as well. So there is some information that we're given in the question. This is sales revenue in millions of dollars, and so we should add that here. In millions. Now, we don't know if it's Canadian or US dollars, so we can't add that. We don't know the currency. So let's pull the average here. Average sales by quarter in millions dollars. Oops, typo. Fix that up. Okay, so again, let's think about in words what it is we want to accomplish here, and then we can get to work on the formula. So what I would like Excel to do is look for this specific quarter every time it occurs in this list, okay, so many times, and I would like it to average this figure, and I'll put it in a different color. And I would like Excel to continue doing this all the way down the list. And I'm not going to highlight them all because I want Excel to do this work for me. So we're going to use the average if function. So this one's pretty cool. Average if. Okay, that's the function we want to use. So the first thing it's going to ask us for is the range. So where should Excel go to look? In this case, we want Excel to go over here to look. Okay, but I don't want to select my range in that way, so I'll delete that. I've named that range, and I named that range quarter. So I can start typing that in. Whoops, have to spell it properly. Okay, and there it is, quarter. The next thing that we need to add is the criteria. What should Excel go and look for? It should go and look for this value. Okay, and notice that I'm not making that an absolute value. It's going to remain relative because when I copy my formula down, I want it to look up the subsequent quarters, so 2, 3, and 4. Okay, now So telling Excel, go look for one in the range that I've specified. And when you find it, I want you to average the value in the column that I have named sales. Okay, so in this column. Again, I'm not going to highlight a number of cells. I'm going to use the named range. So let me just get rid of that. And I named this sales. Okay. There we go. Now let's copy this down. There we go. So this should be formatted in dollars. And I'm going to get rid of the decimals. Sorry. So in this case, so usually when we're looking at dollars, I would recommend no decimals or 2 decimals, depending on the scale of the number. Okay, so if we're talking about $35 billion, we don't need to know how many pennies. Okay, if we are talking about a price list, for example, and one of the prices is $2.29, sudden decimals are relevant, and I would suggest we need 2 decimals in that case. This is a unique scenario because the figures are represented in millions. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to remove all of the decimals. I think you could probably include 3 decimals, but then think to yourself, you're not really representing it in millions anymore. Why don't you just represent the number in dollars? So all that to say, I think it's most appropriate to remove all of the decimals, and that's what I'm going to do. Okay. But I am going to add the dollar signs. I'm going to do that over here too. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of this highlighting now because we just used it for demonstration purposes. So now we have a summary of the quarters, the average sales by quarter in millions, but we still haven't created our index. And in order to prepare our index, we need to know what the average of all quarters is. So I'll add all quarters here. And we can use just a regular average function here. Oops. So we're going to average sales. Okay, and now we can add our seasonal index. So I'm going to name this. I'd like this to look a little bit different because this is all quarters. So I'm going to bold it so that we're aware that it's a little bit different than the other pieces of data. In fact, I don't even really like it here. So let's do a little bit of tidying up here. I think I'm going to move it over here. And I can just cutting and pasting. Okay. The reason I'm doing it, as I look at it, I think it could be a little bit misleading to the reader. They might think that that's a sum of all of the other numbers, and I'm just not sure how it'll be interpreted. So I will call this average of all quarters. Okay. So I'll fix these up just in a minute. So the seasonal index really is we have to compare the average for the quarter, and we have to divide that into the overall average because we really want to understand, are quarter 1 sales typically lower or higher than the average of all sales? Okay. So I'm going to name some cells. So I'm going to call this overall average. Okay. And I'm going to call this, this is sales average by quarter. Oops. So now let's do our work here. So we want to take, we want to take the sales average by quarter, okay, and we want to divide that into the overall average. There we go. Now we have our index. I think we could reduce the number of decimals here. There we go. That makes sense. So based on what I see here, we see a big surge in the fourth quarter. Now, there's some more analysis that would be required to figure out why that is, but we know this is sales information for Toys R Us. And so what I would guess that this is related to is holiday purchases. Okay, so let's just do a little bit of formatting here. So this is a title. Okay, these are titles. There we go. This does not need to be bolded anymore. One thing that would be very interesting would be to actually throw in a graph to take a look at the data so that we can really understand the nature of sales. And let's just take a minute to do it, okay? So what I'm going to do is highlight this data, and I'm going to insert. I'm going to use a line graph because I want to look at the trend over time. Okay, so as soon as I look at this data, I am seeing what looks like low sales, the peak in the fourth quarter, low sales, and the peak in the fourth quarter, except the number here says 8. So I have an issue with this chart, and let's just fix it up right now. So I'm going to right click here, and I'm going to go into select data. And I see what the issue is here. The x-axis labels are just being generically called 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's because when I selected the data, I really didn't select anything. I didn't tell Excel what it should use to label the x-axis, but I know what it should use, so I'm going to add that now. So I'm going to click on Edit. And I am going to select this range. Say OK. So that looks a little bit better. It's a little squished in. Whoops. But at least now we're able to see that it's quarter 1, 2, 3, excuse me, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we see the peak, and so on and so forth. The last thing that we really need to do here is, let's update our title. This would be Toys R Us sales by quarter. We do know the years, so this is from 1997 to 2002. Okay, and I can put my name in here. Today's October 16th. Again, I'm going to make this part a little bit smaller. Oops. Okay, we don't need the grid lines, so let's get rid of that. But I do think what we want to point out to the reader, and I can insert a text box here. I will say sales peak in the fourth quarter. insert some arrows to draw the reader's attention to that. Let's see here. Oh, nope. Let's see if I can make this larger. Then it will be easier to find. There they are. Okay. Okay, I'll just add these in. So I think that that really helps to illustrate the point of this exercise, so that we see over time there is a seasonal trend and the peak is in the fourth quarter for each of those years. Okay, good, thanks.